Welcome back everybody to another episode of Check This Out. I hope you are doing well as always. Today we are going to be continuing our series asking the question, can a truck driver cook? And what is it, you may ask, that your humble truck driver is going to attempt to cook? No, you're not going to ask that. You've already seen the thumbnail. Anyhow, it's moussaka. That delicious classic Greek dish that is just packed with flavor from ground lamb, goat cheese, spices, and topped with a creamy bechamel sauce and baked to a golden brown. An eggplant. No, wait, don't turn it off. I know that many of you believe, as I once did, that eggplant is evil, and eggplant is downright nasty. Now wait a minute, get that down off there now. This is a family-friendly channel. As Uncle Roger would say,
sorry children.
Exactly, Uncle Roger. The main reason I hated eggplant for so long is because I had eggplant that was done very badly. Eggplants, like tobacco, are part of the nightshade family. Nightshade contains alkaloids including solanine, which can be toxic. Eating the leaves or tubers of these plants can lead to symptoms such as burning of the throat, nausea, vomiting, and heart arrhythmia. And the reaction can be fatal. So tell me now, who's ready for some yummy eggplant? Come on, I know you want it. Seriously though, if we don't deal with the alkaloids in the eggplant, it's kind of like eating the contents of an ashtray. But deal with them we shall. So now that I have everybody's mouth watering for some yummy, delicious, succulent eggplant, let's get over to the kitchen and make some moussaka. Okay, let's first start off with the ingredients for the lamb. And I guess the first thing we're going to need is lamb. I got 1 pound of ground lamb here. I suppose in a pinch you could substitute ground beef, but unless you want to really piss off some Greek people, don't use ground turkey. I mean, it's just not the same, is it? Ground lamb is the way to go if you want it to be, pretty authentic. The next item we're going to need is some olive oil, some ground cinnamon, some ground ginger. Got a nice organic ginger here. Some nice freshly ground allspice. I usually get the whole allspice berries. These will last a whole lot longer if you get them in the whole form and grind them up yourself. Next we're going to need just a mere 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Remember that all ingredients, amounts, and procedure, as always, will be in the description down below. Okay, next, 1 large red onion, 1 large red bell pepper, 1 serrano chile. You probably don't have to use serrano here. If you happen to have jalapeno around, the spice level is pretty similar. So, don't go out and try to find serrano if you don't have one around. If you do have jalapeno, you could go ahead and use it there. There's no big problem with that. Next we have garlic. We're going to be using 5 cloves of it here. 1 cup of red wine. Next we're going to need a 28-ounce can of plum tomatoes with their juices. I know this one's a bit more than 28 ounces. I'm going to have to weigh it out because this is the only size I had around. Then we're going to need some chopped parsley. This recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of fresh oregano. I went to 3 stores and could not find fresh oregano. So we're going to use the good old 1-to-3 conversion ratio. So if you're using fresh spices to dried spices, usually the dried spices are 1/3. So since there's 3 teaspoons and a tablespoon, we need 2 tablespoons of our oregano fresh. So we're going to be using 2 teaspoons of the dried product here. And that should be about everything we need for our lamb. Let's go ahead and look at the list of ingredients then for our eggplant. The first thing we need, of course, is eggplant, some type of vegetable oil for frying off the eggplant, some freshly ground black pepper, some salt for purging the eggplant, and also for seasoning. That's about it for the eggplant part. Now basically we got one more left, and that's the bechamel sauce. Alright, for our basic bechamel sauce we're going to need butter, some milk, bay leaf, freshly grated nutmeg, 3 eggs, which we're just going to harvest the yolks out of. We need a half a cup of goat cheese, and this is one here that I really wouldn't compromise on. There's just something about that richness, that funky flavor that's in a good goat cheese that you really just can't replace with anything else. Then for topping things off just before we bake it, 1 cup of grated Romano cheese and the zest of 1 lemon. And that should about cover all of our ingredients that we need for this recipe. First thing though we're going to start with is our eggplant. And trying to control some of the bitterness in our eggplant and leach out some of those alkaloids in there is we're going to take it, cut some nice thick slices, sprinkle it generously with salt. That'll help dry it up and help leach out some of that bitterness in the eggplant. Then we're going to take it and put it out in a single layer on a cooling rack, suspend it over the sink, and I'm going to leave it there for about an hour. So let's go ahead and get started. Because these things are mostly water, and by the time we finish purging them and doing our frying of them, they're going to be a lot thinner, and we want them to hold together during the cooking process in the oven. So I think about a 1/2 inch will be about right for it. Okay, the eggplant's still purging, and boy is it purging. The amount of liquid that's coming off those things is just crazy. It's kind of a tannish color. Looks like something like when you're cleaning out an ashtray or something, that brown liquid. That's those alkaloids. That's that bitter stuff, and it's just coming off there like crazy. I'm going to continue to let it go for a while we start our next step. And the first thing is going to be getting the lamb into the pan and brown it up a bit. I'm going to start with about a tablespoon of olive oil. Get that heated up. See, it's just starting to smoke a little bit. And we'll go ahead, get our lamb into there. Now we're going to take a half a teaspoon of our cinnamon. Those are 1/4 teaspoons, so I'm just using 2. That's what I got here. Half a teaspoon of ginger. 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground allspice. 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Some freshly ground black pepper. And some salt. Now we'll get that all mixed around, continue to brown the lamb. Now that we got that pretty well browned and chopped up, we're going to take it and put this lamb into a strainer over top of a bowl and let that hang out just a little bit while we start sauteing our onions and the other aromatics. Let's go ahead and return the pan back to the stove. Put about another 3 tablespoons of oil in there. Got 1 whole sliced onion and 1 whole diced red bell pepper. I like big slivers of onion in mine. You can dice the onion if you want to. Like I said before, it's your choice. Okay, we're going to let these go about 5-7 minutes or so until they're nice and soft. Then we'll start our next part. Looks like our onions and peppers have softened up nicely. Now we're going to take 5 cloves of garlic and 1 diced serrano chile. We're going to go ahead and mix that in there for about a minute or two. The serrano and the garlic's been cooking for about a minute. So now what we're going to do is add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And you don't want that raw tomato flavor. You want to cook that off a little bit in there for about a minute also. Then mix it in with the rest of the ingredients. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now what we want to do is deglaze that pan a bit. We're going to go ahead and take our wine. Put that in there, scrape the bottom of the pan, get all that nice fond off the bottom, because that's just packed full of flavor. And we'll go ahead and put our lamb back in there also. Now what we want to do is cook this wine down until it's just about completely evaporated. Then we'll start our next step. Alright, we've been cooking down that wine for about 5 minutes, and as you can see, it's fairly dry when you pull it aside. There's a little bit of liquid left, but that's okay. We've basically cooked out all of that raw alcohol. Next thing we want to do is put our pureed plum tomatoes in. I did not puree those too much. I kind of like some big chunks of tomato in my sauce. I just kind of hit them with a potato masher and got them fairly well pureed, but there's still kind of a rustic feel to it because you still got some big chunks of tomato in there. So what we want to do now, mix this in, bring it to a boil, and then we're going to reduce it to a simmer until it's thickened. Kind of like we're making a bolognese in a way. You don't want a lot of water in that sauce because the eggplant, even though we're going to fry it off and even though we've purged it, it's still going to release some moisture. So we want a fairly dry sauce so that our moussaka is not swimming in sauce. So let's take a look at it in about 30 minutes and see what we got. I think we're about where we need to be on this now. If you see here, like I said, it's almost like a bolognese sauce. It's really not coming back in on itself. It's most of the liquid is gone by now. I must apologize, I forgot the oregano and the parsley in the last step. So if you do decide to make this, go by the directions in the description, because I'll have everything sorted out and done in the right order and that. Let's go ahead and set that aside, get the eggplant out. I think the eggplant, I've just went ahead and left it go. Seems to be not giving up that much of that nasty liquid anymore. I'm going to go ahead and pat it dry. We'll get the oil ready and we're going to fry those off. After we're done with that, we'll head to the bechamel and then do our assembly and bake it. Okay, I've got the oil to about 375. It'll probably drop down to about 350 now that I got the eggplant in. I'm going to do it in batches so we don't lose too much heat out of the oil. We want to cook these until they're just lightly golden brown and kind of soft. I'll go ahead and let those go for a little bit. We'll take them out, put them on some paper towels, dry them off, and we'll set those aside and start our bechamel sauce. Okay, let's start off our bechamel sauce by taking 6 tablespoons of butter, 1/2 cup of flour. Get that all incorporated in there, and you want to cook it for about a minute to get rid of that raw flour taste. After you've done that, then you want to take 2.5 cups of milk and 1 bay leaf. Get that mixed in, get it all nice and smooth. And once it is, you want to simmer it until it gets nice and thick. Okay, that's what we're looking for right there. All the flour and butter has been incorporated, all the lumps are out of it. Now let's take a nice heavy pinch of salt, get that stirred in. A few nice grinds of black pepper. Go ahead and get that in there now. Then we're going to take the zest of 1 lemon. That's really going to brighten everything up and lighten it a little bit. And after we have our lemon zest incorporated, we're going to take 1/4 teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg. That's just really going to add a whole other depth of flavor to our bechamel. Now at this point you might want to give it a little bit of taste and adjust the seasoning. If there's not enough salt, not enough pepper, go ahead and add some more at this point. But for me, I think I hit it just about right. Now let's go ahead and set that aside and get our goat cheese and egg mixture ready. Let's start off with 1/2 cup of goat cheese. Then we're going to take 3 egg yolks and start incorporating those into the goat cheese. Could have probably had the goat cheese a little bit softer, but I think if I work with it enough here, it'll finally get in there. Okay, finally got it mixed together nice and smooth, and we're ready to add that to our bechamel. Okay, let's go ahead and get that right in there and start mixing that into our sauce. It's looking good. The consistency is nice and thick. It should hold to the top of the moussaka very nicely. The smell is fantastic. Just the nutmeg, the lemon releasing its natural aromatics. Now let's go ahead and dig that bay leaf out of there. I just about forgot about that. Don't want to eat that thing. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and set that aside. That'll be ready to top off our moussaka. Next we'll start the assembly, finally. Okay, I decided to go with a 9x9 baking pan. It holds about 3 quarts. If you have a 3-quart casserole dish, I'm sure that would work. The bigger Pyrex dish that I had earlier was just way too big. I couldn't get the eggplant with the amount of pieces I had to cover the bottom, and I didn't think that the meat sauce would cover the whole thing, dividing it down into 2 pieces, so went with the 9x9. So let's get our eggplant here, start layering 1 layer of that right into the bottom. I'm glad I had a little bit more eggplant. I think I originally said 16 pieces. I think I had to go with really 18 of them just to even fill this pan. But as you can see, that covers the bottom just perfectly. Nice layer, they're all touching. Now let's grab our beautiful lamb meat sauce, take about half of it, and cover that first layer of eggplant. Yeah, I think this pan's going to work out a whole heck of a lot better than the other one I had. That's about half of it right there. And that looks like that's going to make a beautiful layer on top of that eggplant. Now that we have that spread out, let's go ahead and take our next layer of eggplant. I went with about 9 pieces here also. Get them right in there. Take some of the smaller ones, fill in the gaps. Now this total was 2 small eggplants. I'm pretty sure that one big one would probably give you about the same. But like I said, this one here was 2 small ones. Okay, there's eggplant layer number 2. Let's grab the rest of our sauce. Start spreading that on top. And then we'll get our bechamel cheese sauce and put that right on top then. There we go, that's absolutely perfect. Everything's nicely covered, fills in all the corners, great. Just the right size pan. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and top it off with our cheese sauce. Looks like we should have enough to put a nice thick layer on there. Oh, that looks beautiful, and it smells really good too. That lemon is still just kind of popping out at you. Okay, now that we have our bechamel cheese sauce spread, we just got one more step here. We're going to take about a cup of grated Romano cheese. That'll make a nice brown crust on the top. Get that all spread on there. Now we're about ready for the oven. I have the oven at 400 degrees. The recipe says 40 to 50 minutes. I'm going to start at 40, and we'll take a look at it then, see if it's done. If not, we'll give it a little bit more time. All right, time to get it in the oven. Okay, there we have it. Mine was about 40 minutes at 400 degrees. Take a look at that. Absolutely fantastic, beautifully brown. Well, I say what we need to do now is cut into it, look at the layers, and have a taste test. What do you think? Wow, take a look at that, will ya? That could be on the restaurant menu of any Greek restaurant in the country. Not just the United States. I think that's even nice enough to be on a restaurant menu, just about, maybe, dare I say, even in Greece. That is absolutely beautiful. The layers, the eggplant, not runny at all, no liquid coming out of it, just like you want to see in a good lasagna too. You don't want the thing floating in water. But the real question is though, how does it taste? It can look good, but how does it taste? Well, let's find out. Okay, here we go. This smells so good. And it better for as long as it took to do today. Let's try a taste. Oh. Everything is just so nicely balanced in there. You got that little hint of nutmeg, the little hint of allspice, the Romano cheese, the goat cheese in that bechamel sauce. No wonder I haven't done this in a long time. It's just so rich and so decadent. Well, I think dinner time's calling me. So thanks once again for joining me on another episode of Check This Out in our continuing series, Can a Truck Driver Cook? Moussaka. Judging by what I tasted here, I think he can. Thanks again for all those people that have subscribed. Please be safe, take care, and we'll see you next time.